next section of the conference, which is going to be hosted by the ever wonderful Stephen Isherwood, who many of you will know, who's the Chief Executive at the Institute for Student Employers. Lovely to see you, Stephen. And Stephen has a panel of three wonderful employers with him. Catherine from FDM, Kathy from PwC, and Claire from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Stephen, I will hand the reins over to you, and I look forward to hearing what our wonderful employers have got to tell us about the future of graduate recruitment.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks, Charlie, for informative as ever. I've just been catching up on your data, so very useful insights that we all need. And I agree with a lot of those myths that you're busting. They still pervade, don't they, out there? Right, so we've got half an hour where we're going to be exploring just to understand a bit more what's happening with the employer mindset at the moment. Obviously, with coronavirus, it really has turned our industry on its head, and we're going to explore that a bit more. For those that don't know me, my name is Steve Isherwood. I lead the Institute of Student Employers, which I'm sure many of you are members, and if you're not, you damn well should be. We're the voice of student recruitment, both for graduates and also higher skilled school leaver recruitment apprentices, that kind of thing. We've got about 300 employer members, about 100 universities that are members, and then also a considerable number of suppliers as well. So a very broad community. So that's the plug for the ISE. Now let's meet our panel. We've got three experts here that I'm trying to give us some great insight. So I'm going to go round you on my screen rather than we get that bit where everybody goes, oh, who talks? So Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Absolutely. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Kathy Baxter. My role is Talent Engagement Lead at PwC. My team and I focus on the attraction and engagement strategy for schools and universities across the UK. And we also have responsibility for designing and running our talent engagement programs, which includes our degree partnership programs and our short and long-term work experience programs as well. So nice to be here this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for joining us. Claire, would you like to go next?
Hi everyone, yes, my name is Claire Bainen and I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for the UK and Ireland. We have a team around the country, similar to Kathy's team, probably engaging with university partners and looking at engaging talent to hopefully attract them to our brand and apply for our opportunities.
Fantastic, thank you very much, Claire. And last by no means least, Catherine, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, thank you. So, hi everyone, it's Catherine Brewster. I work at FDM Group as the UK University Partnerships Manager. So very much like Kathy and I mentioned, I've got a team of graduate recruiters who manage a lot of our partnerships with universities all throughout the UK, and we link it into obviously graduate recruitment and focus very much on the attraction piece, but also as a technology employer, helping people understand, you know, the breadth of the opportunities available within the technology industry, who then obviously hopefully will come and join us as a consultant.
Fantastic, thank you very much. I'm sure you'd agree we've got a very experienced panel then. So I've got some questions that the panelists have also seen to add a bit of structure to this session. We've got half an hour. We're also really keen to hear questions from you, the audience. So please use the facilities within the Zoom platform that we're using. We'll see those questions coming through and we'll present those to the panel as well. So the first question that I've got is about student partners, about campus ambassadors. And interested to know actually if you have those ambassadors, how you've used them in the past, and actually how you expect this to evolve and develop in the light of coronavirus and more activities happening virtually. Kathy, would you like to go first?
Yeah. Yes, I'm happy to. So yes, we do use campus ambassadors, and we have done for as long as I can remember. So each year we invite the students who've been on one of our work experience programs, so such as their work placements or the internships. So usually the ones who've been with us for a bit of a longer experience, and we invite them to be an ambassador for us back out on campus. So typically in the past, they've tended to come to our events to help promote our opportunities and generally spread awareness about our programs and to share their physical experiences of what they've been through. And as we know, students love to hear about experiences from the people who've actually done the role. So it's always been a really successful initiative that we've used year after year. So despite our programs and our opportunities being, you know, the engagement we're doing virtually this year, we do plan to use our ambassadors in very much the same way, but albeit a virtual experience. So they'll be sharing posts on and blogs on social media, sharing details locally with their, you know, people at university about the events and that we'll be doing online as well. So very much in a similar way that we plan to use them, but just virtually.
Fantastic. And Kathy, I know one question that will be on people's minds as well. Could you just give us a quick idea of what's happening with your vacancies this year? Because am I right that you're about to open your vacancies? Because I think it's quite important to get that message over, of course, that people are still recruiting, you know, despite the doom and gloom in the headlines.
Absolutely, we sure are. We've, you know, most of our vacancies are in the process of being published. We'll officially be launching fully in October as we get everything prepared and ready. So we will still be recruiting. We have vacancies. In fact, we ran our first assessment day yesterday with people who have been sort of pending from last season. So yeah, we're absolutely still recruiting.
Great. I also saw a tweet from your managing partner come out. I think it was on Monday, of course, it was all your intake this year started and you honoured all your job offers, etc., didn't you, as well? So
we did. You know, everyone who was, we'd pretty much, as COVID hit, we'd almost finished our recruitment anyway. So it was quite fortunate in terms of not having to do too much in terms of contingency planning for the recruitment process for the remainder of last season. So we'd honoured everyone, and everyone joined us in autumn for their graduate programme. So yeah, that's all been virtually onboarded and gone to plan, which is great.
Fantastic. Right, I'm going off piste already. Let's get back on track. Claire, can I pose that question to you around campus ambassadors, using students within your campaigns and how that's evolving at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. We are still partnering with Enactus, a society which is absolutely fantastic, really developing that next generation of leaders. So we have a big campaign right now to mentor each Enactus team at each university. From a campus ambassador perspective, again, we've always had this position and used our interns who are going back into their third or final year. But actually this year we're changing our approach slightly. So we're currently in the process of looking at our interns that we want to have as campus ambassadors this year for us. But we're also looking at potentially advertising that position too. So for any universities where we don't really have presence or there's an ambassador that we can't really kind of recruit into that role, we are going to liaise with the universities and hopefully advertise that position. And we're really looking for students that just have an excellent network already, you know, those students on campus that are really great at networking. And we really want them to focus this year more on sort of diversity and inclusion and looking at some different sort of societies we might be able to collaborate with. So we're absolutely on plan for a programme this year.
Fantastic. And can I ask you about your vacancies as well, Claire? Are you planning to recruit as normal this coming recruitment season?
Yes, we are planning to recruit. We currently actually have 28 positions posted on our website. So we are currently in the process of recruiting in pockets of the country. I would say, yeah, probably October, November time, we'll see those positions all posted again. And hopefully we'll be relatively back to normal with our intake. We haven't quite decided yet on the numbers that we're going to be needing. I think that's still in debate with some of our regional teams, but we absolutely will be hiring, which is again great positive news for students to hear.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a very common story. We hear that on our employer forums all the time, which is that yes, employers still planning to recruit, often in the same numbers that they did this year, maybe slightly less, one or two slightly more, but actually a much more staged approach, as businesses of course are very cautious around when they release those vacancy numbers. I think we will see a much more spread out recruitment season this year. Thanks, Claire. Catherine, so what's your view on using students actually in your campaigns this autumn?
Yes, we usually take similar of obviously looking at our placement students, our interns when they return back onto campus to offer them brand ambassador opportunities as well. I would say previously it's not been a massive of our kind of attraction campaign. A lot of the team will work with brand ambassadors to attend events maybe, but a lot of it is delivered by the university partnerships team themselves. We are exploring at the moment, and it's confirmed, but we are exploring looking at it in slightly more digital kind of well, and potentially going out and analysing those positions as well. So looking more at an individual's kind of digital footprint, looking at their social media interactions and that sort of thing, as tying in with much more of that virtual engagement. So for us, it's not confirmed, but we are in the process of looking at how that changes to become more of a kind of social influencer type role potentially in the future. But it's, as I said, still being looked at and confirmed at the moment.
Fantastic. And as well, can I ask you about your vacancies? Now, I know you carried on recruiting through the summer because Kate Croucher did one of our early podcasts, explaining the sort of the not minor challenge of shifting your recruitment processes online. So can I just ask what your plans are for the recruitment coming season?
Because we recruit all year round, we had to switch all of our processes, all of our onboarding, all of our assessment centres to virtual in about a day. So that was a challenge, but we did it. But our plan at the moment is much more of a focus on the technical role over our business opportunities, just because we're constantly reviewing the needs and demands from our client, and that's demand is we're seeing on the roles. But we have been continuously recruiting kind of throughout the lockdown period, probably at slightly lower numbers than we would do normally, but all of our roles, our roles have been live, and they will still be live, for continue to be so throughout the autumn term as well. So we don't have the confirmed exact numbers, because we look a lot at what the client demand is from our clients that consultants work with, but we will be continuing to recruit, and those opportunities will remain as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Catherine. I've had a couple of questions coming through, so please do use the question and answer and box out there, and I'll put those questions to the panel. I've got a couple I'll save towards the end, but I have one for you, Beth, that's relevant to the conversation we're just having, and it's asking, what are your expectations of the PwC campus ambassadors?
Were you addressing me, Stephen?
Yeah, sorry, yes, Catherine. Sorry, yes.
No worries. In terms of expectations, we kind of run a tier system so they can get involved in as much or as little activity as they want. We don't prescribe that they have to do anything, because we don't want to force anyone to take part in something that they don't want to be there at, because they're not going to represent as well. So we encourage them to come along to our events, create a blog that we can share online, share our opportunities. So we encourage them to do these things, but we don't force them, so there aren't any expectations, and it won't go against them if they don't do it. So that's kind of our approach with everything like that. We want people to do it because they want to showcase what they've been through.
Fantastic, thanks. So the next question I've got for all three of you, but if you can, I can address this to you first, Kathy, which is, what are your most significant changes, the most significant changes you've made to your graduate recruitment plans for the coming recruitment season?
Yeah, absolutely. So for this coming season, we will be doing end-to-end virtual process for attraction and selection. So everything we will be doing virtually for the whole season. So we had already moved our selection process online. We did that in autumn 2018 with only the final stage assessment day being held in our offices. So, but because of the pandemic, we've worked over the summer now to recreate our final stage virtually too. So for this coming season, the assessment day will now be an immersive virtual experience. So we won't run it in the offices at all this year. We actually ran our first day, our first assessment day of the season yesterday, and I'm pleased to report it ran smoothly as well. So if anyone hasn't managed to do it yet, hopefully that can give people some encouragement that the bandwidth worked and everything went to plan. So that's kind of the selection. From attraction, our schools and university engagement will be fully virtual as well this year. So we'll be running a series of events called our PwC Virtual Classroom and Explore PwC, which will all give students the opportunity to find out more about us and meet our people virtually as well. So we still want to make sure that we can have that engagement with students. They can meet us, they can ask the questions, hear from our people, and hopefully our people sort of bring the experience to life for them. We'll be using a number of different platforms to connect and engage with students. So we'll be using WebEx, Google, Handshake, and other platforms that we'll be launching as we sort of progress over the next couple of weeks. We've also turned some of our work experience opportunities virtual as well. So in the event that the pandemic doesn't subside, then we'll still be able to enable students to get an experience with us this season.
And Kathy, I had another question too. This was from Robbie, and I'll pose it to the other three as well. We can include it. And it was a question from Robbie saying that now that recruitment is virtual and online, is it harder to gauge who will be a good hire?
So we've now done 2 seasons with the first part of the process virtual, and you know, the results and the exam results coming through from the students who've been through it, we haven't had any issues with performance, or so it's kind of ran as we hoped it would do. Obviously, we've yet to do a full season with the assessment day run virtually as well, but I genuinely don't feel any reason why it would we wouldn't be able to gauge effectively the recruits, because we're doing the same experience with them, but we're just doing it virtually. And I think we can all agree that, you know, I think certainly from myself and my team and the people I work with, we've managed to work effectively online. So there's no reason that shouldn't translate to this experience as well.
Cool, thanks, Kathy. Claire, can I turn to you now and that question about, you know, the most significant changes that you've made to your recruitment plans for this coming season?
Yes, well, overall, it's adapting to the virtual world very quickly. We're so used to doing career fairs in person. Now we've got to really get our head around really hosting and being involved in career fairs virtually, which I'm excited about, and there's a lot coming up over the next few months. I would also say, actually, we've made a change to our recruitment process. So actually, we don't have assessment centres anymore, and we've changed the branch visits, because we do still have a face-to-face step in the process where a student would, or a candidate would, visit the branch and have an interview with an area manager. So we've took the competencies that we assess for at the assessment centre and actually changed the questions and the way we assess at the branch visit to really more test those in action versus in an assessment centre kind of setting. So I would say that's been quite a big change to our process.
And so you keeping I'm assuming you have to keep the branch visits actually in your selection process, because your business is not something that you can do virtually, really. You've got to still physically go and pick up a vehicle and everything attached to that. Yeah,
so that's been a lot of work, just making sure that it's a safe experience for the candidate and for our employees, absolutely. So after the online application, they would do a virtual interview, a Teams interview with a recruiter, but that next step is to go to one of our locations, because when you start working for us, you'll be based at one of our branches. So we've really worked hard to make sure it's all definitely socially distanced. There's measures that very prescriptive measures we've put in place that we've sent to the candidate before they come to a branch visit. So yes, we can't take that away, because in essence, that's the customer interaction is so important to us, so still remains.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important that we remember that in a whole bunch of industries, actually not everybody has switched to virtual home working. I was chatting to an engineering firm yesterday, and of course they've got they've got a lot of their sites up and running, and people actually, and graduates starting and going into plants, etc. So it's something worth bearing in mind. So Catherine, over at FDM, what have been the big changes you've had to make to your plans for this coming year?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I actually think on a positive position as well, it's given us the kind of encouragement to trial things we were already talking about anyway, but actually just, you know, put them into practice and actually move forward with them. So we would normally deliver, you know, about 450 events on campus throughout the UK a year, and we had some open evenings where people would come into, you know, FDM offices and see what the opportunity is all about. But what we actually introduced at the beginning of lockdown was FDM specific events, so events that we've been sharing with our university partners, running and advertising often through the Handshake platform as well. And actually, you know, running them as FDM events, meaning we can engage with lots of students from lots of different universities in, you know, at one opportunity. And they focus very much on kind of technical upskilling sort of sessions, which have been really popular. So I think one of the big changes we've made is that we'll continue to run those events throughout the autumn term, but also introduce some, you know, and be involved in the university specific events as well. So it'll be, you know, a combination of FDM specific and university specific events we'll be running, you know, the virtual careers fairs, some projects, curriculum projects we'll be involved with, but obviously all through virtual platforms as well. But that's probably one of the main differences. In terms of our recruitment process, as I mentioned before, we had to switch our process really quickly, and we initially just flipped our entire assessment centre process to take place virtually, so to take place through the Zoom platform. And then in about June time, which we'll look to continue with throughout the rest of the year, is that we actually broke up what would have been our assessment centre into 2 separate stages. So previously individuals would come into our offices and they would have, you know, a presentation, they then have 3 strengths-based interviews and then complete different tests as part of the recruitment process. And what we actually looked to do was to break that into 2 separate stages, because it was a lot to complete on one virtual day and to be sat at your laptop all day. So we actually have introduced the online tests as a stage after our video interview. And then those who are successful are invited to our virtual final stage interviews. So effectively, we don't have that full assessment centre process because it's broken down into 2 stages. And that's probably another big change that we've made, but actually has had really positive feedback from people within the business internally, but also from individuals going through the process as well. So it's something we'll look to continue into the future as well.
And just going back to Robbie's question, would you say is it easier, is it harder to access, or is it just different using online selection, you know, when it comes to actually, you know, assessing those candidates that are right for FDM?
I think it's definitely different, and it was different, very different to begin with. You know, when you have a video interview, which is a pre-recorded interview, and then you have what would have been a face-to-face interview virtual, I think initially some people were, you know, candidates-wise were kind of a bit confused around what's the difference of them. But I think as long as a recruiter, you know, you're emphasising that these are different stages in the process, and a virtual face-to-face interview is a live interview. I actually think now it's becoming more and more, you know, like a normal face-to-face interview, whereas at first people weren't as familiar with that method, but over time people have become more used to it and have just naturally become more used to engaging with people through virtual means in many aspects of their life as well. So, you know, we don't have a group exercise, so I think that interview part, you know, it does seem to work effectively. One thing we have noticed is that for us, we would obviously recruit people virtually now. We'll then be training them and onboarding them as part of their graduate program virtually, and then they'll be transitioning to work with our clients, still employed by FDM, but that would also be virtual as well. And a big part of when they go out on client site is that they are FDM and they're representing our business. So it's, you know, we need to just make sure that they do fully feel part of the business, even though they've never potentially stepped foot in one of our offices before. And so that's something that we're looking at as well. And some of the graduates we have joining in a socially distanced way, we've been setting it up for them to come, you know, in small groups to actually meet each other, see our academy, see the offices, just so they know what they're of as well.
Yes, I know. I've heard a lot from a lot of employers. It's getting that, there are challenges, but it's getting that induction piece, getting that, because I think that's, whereas a lot of us, you know, who are sort of, I guess, quite experienced, different stages in our career, they're working from home bit. Actually, you know, I am not missing my 2-hour commute every day. But yeah, for young people starting in an office, as well as those people that actually might not have the best situations at home, you know, it's, there are lots of benefits to getting people back on site when we can. I'm conscious of time. We've got about another 4 minutes. So Rebecca, I'm sure she's keeping an eye on the clock too. So I've got one last question to pose to you all, and that's really thinking about the future. If I look back to the financial crash, you know, that caused the recruitment industry to look at things and do things quite differently. And a lot of that did stick, even as the economy bounced back. I've got enough grey hairs to know that recessions do end, so we will get back to a more positive point at some stage. So I'm just interested in what all your thoughts on actually what that future might look like, and what do you think out of the changes that you're all making that will stick for the future. Kathy, would you like to go first?
Yes, happy to. So the world has changed, and it's most definitely accelerated the pace of change with innovation and the new virtual technologies that keep appearing sort of, every day. And I don't think we're ever going to go back to recruitment in the same way that we've ever done before. But I do think it's going to be a balance of the two, because I think already people are craving human interaction. We seem to spend, I mean, I'm sure we're all the same, that we spend most of our lives on video meetings like this. And so I think it is going to be getting a balance. Virtual engagement, I think Catherine said it, but it has lots of advantages in terms of access to far more students, from all different universities. So we can engage with a much bigger audience, which is something we've been wanting to do and trying to do. So this is a great opportunity to be able to do that. But does it mean that we'll never visit a school or university in a post-COVID world? Well, no, not necessarily. We hope to still be able to get back out there at some point. Having the virtual selection process has many advantages for both, the students and us as employers. So if that model, if we can get it right, then that is likely to stay. But it'll be about how we engage with the students post-offer and build loyalty with them. That'll be really the key. So it'll be kind of that, what next after the offer stage to really retain them. So I think for us, for this season, it's going to be, the task will be to work out from a year of us working fully virtual, what is going to work really well and what has its limitations. And then I think we'll learn from that and move forward with probably a bit of a hybrid, a bit of a best of both worlds, hopefully.
Cool, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. And Claire, what are your thoughts on the future? What of this do you think is going to stick? What we're still going to be doing in sort of 2 or 3 years' time that we've learned to do differently this year?
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to take more of a balanced approach. Hopefully one day when we go back to being able to be back on campus. I think we've identified quite a lot of efficiencies that we can gain from marketing our brand virtually. In essence, you can be on 4 campuses or 5 campuses in a day, or present at a campus, whereas, we used to travel to those campuses, which would be impossible to do. So I do feel we will take the efficiencies that we've gained by, looking at those, evaluating those, and probably carrying on with those moving into next year. But I do feel there are some elements where we still want to touch base and see students in the flesh, hopefully, and careers teams. So I think, again, we will take best of both and move forward. And I've been really impressed with the uptake of students joining our events. So yeah, really impressed with that and how many we've been able to have online.
And Catherine, what are your thoughts for the future?
I agree a lot with Kathy and what Claire mentioned as well. I think, there'll be certain elements we'll want to maintain. I think there's a lot more flexibility. There are some efficiencies, you can reach a larger audience in one go. But, I do think that when we can, we will go back to some of those, on-campus activities, and also probably run our, assessment centres will probably offer both, because, different people some might find it easier to do a virtual recruitment process, some might find it better to come into the offices as well. So I think best of both bits to really understand the most effective way to move forward as well.
Cool. Thank you. And Rebecca, it still says 12:40 on my computer clock, so I think we're bang on the money. Just changed as in 41.
Absolutely.
Can I just say, there were a couple of questions that came through that I didn't get time to answer. If people want to ping me an email, we've covered those questions at our employer sector focus group, so more than happy to have a chat. People can find my email on the website. It's quite easy. So.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Stephen, for your wonderful panel hosting. And thank you again to our fantastic panelists. We very much value your time, your insight and your contribution. It's been a wonderful panel. Thank you very much.